Welcome to the Vin Armani Show. We are streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Vin Armani. Also on Twitter and Periscope at Vin Armani is my handle there. We are proud members of the Activist Post Podcast Network, so you can check out all of our audio archives at activistpost.com. Well, it's 10 a.m. Pacific time on Monday morning, so that means we are back coming to you live from fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. Have a great show planned for you today. Our guest in the second hour is Adam Kokesh. He's been on the show before, friend of the show. We're going to talk about his run for 2020 presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party. I believe he's out on the road as we speak, driving from place to place and speaking. I mean, this dude, it seems like for the next couple of years, is going to be doing that. He's kind of won me over to the idea that there may be something to this whole elect somebody to abolish the federal government, and maybe to do it on some other levels as well. We're going to talk with him about that. Also, in the first hour, we're going to have a little chat with Rachel Goldsmith, who is the new executive director of the Free State Project. We are going to talk about Liberty Forum, which is from February 8th through 10th. I will be there up in Manchester, New Hampshire. We are going to talk to her about what we can all expect from that great event. Also got some great stories for you today. Of course, we got some interesting crypto talk and a little bit of a small dive into surveillance and the continued expansion of the surveillance state. I think those two things go hand in hand, as crypto is one of the best ways for us to get some financial privacy and stay away from the grips of Big Brother. So to help me get through all of that today, as always, my good friend, co-host and producer, Mr. Christian Reyes. Christian.
Good morning, Vin.
Good morning. Good morning. How was your week?
It was awesome, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, had a lot of breakthroughs.
Really?
A lot of cool stuff happened.
Do you care to share?
Yeah, actually, so very much on the spiritual side.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, so I've been, as an entrepreneur and stuff like that, I had some struggles with things.
Sure.
And I think I finally realized exactly what's going on with that. And it lies a lot deeper than just what I'm doing in the physical.
Well, that's usually true, right? It's like what we believe, we perceive. What we perceive is what we do,
But it even goes deeper than that. Like into the belief system. So I started going into belief systems, and it sounds kind of weird, but there's a lot of stuff there.
It's not weird to me, man. Like, I don't, for myself, I've found that the best way to have success in business is to not have that separation. Like, to truly be seeing that, okay, this is, yes, I'm in business. Yes, it is a profit-making enterprise, but it should also be serving you spiritually as well. Like, it should be helping you to grow.
Right.
And if it's not helping you to grow, it's probably not the right path.
Right.
Right. As these paths like show up in front of you, as you're presented with these opportunities, like, it's all a part of your consciousness trying to grow and expand. And whether that's in business, like whether that is in just like straight up spirituality of like being on a mountaintop, meditating and doing yoga, you know what I mean? They're all just human action.
Right.
So it's whether it's just your relationships that you have with your friends and your family, you know what I mean? Like, it's all very important in terms of growing our consciousness. I think this week, because I was feeling, and maybe it's because it got a little warmer or something like that, but I also was feeling very like spiritually empowered this week for some reason. So maybe there's just something in the air. Yeah,
it's interesting, man. So I found some really cool stuff. Basically, how do I explain this? It really, like, what happens on the physical, like the thoughts, emotions, and actions are basically just your steering wheel. It starts with the it doesn't start with the thoughts, emotions, and actions. There's actually a step before that.
Okay.
And that's what I've been honing in on. That's what I've been looking at. And the step before that is actually feeling and beliefs.
Yeah, sure.
So feeling and belief is kind of like the gas to the car, or the car itself.
Sure.
Thoughts, emotion, actions, basically the steering wheel. It'll steer you in that direction, but it's not going to bring you to that destination or bring you to wherever you want to go. So the whole time, I mean, it's been an ongoing process for about 6 years, and I had a huge breakthrough about 3 days ago.
It's good,
And
man.
yeah,
I mean, it's interesting. I've been listening to a lot of Terrence McKenna lately, and you know, I think I've been lucky that I got exposed to psychedelics at a very early age,
seriously.
right? And then it's been a part of my life, and you know, still I like not so much the other stuff, not so much the acid and the mushrooms anymore and the mescaline, but now like ayahuasca every once in a while, every few months has been like a blessing for me in the last several years that I've discovered it. But I think that this is such a key, like, evolved level of consciousness, is to understand that, like, when we make these moves, when we have thoughts and we have feelings about what we want to do and how we want to do it, our goal, we're trying to get to a feeling of contentment. Right? We're trying to get to a feeling of synchronicity, trying to get to a feeling of fulfillment.
Yeah.
But so often, like, we're out of tune with our own feelings in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah.
So no, I think it's great. It's great that you're having these revelations. Like, one of the biggest things is just really getting quiet, quieting your brain, quieting your emotions, and just being in the moment, feeling, and just seeing what comes out. Like, that's what meditation's great for that. Psychedelic use, I'm a big supporter. You know what I mean? These are all the things that quiet you down and allow you to go into that lower, or maybe it's
higher.
Maybe it's maybe it's the highest level coming down. It doesn't really matter. I mean, that's just you know what I mean? But it takes you into that other dimension, I think. That's
yeah,
really
that's
cool.
exactly what it is. It's another dimension. The best way to describe it would be like, it's like software too. It works exactly the same. So I can look at this computer screen, and let's say I wanted to make an adjustment. I couldn't just take a whiteout marker and write on the screen and write out a word.
No.
I'd have to go inside of that software program and rewrite the code. And that's basically how it works with your belief system too.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, man, belief system, this is it's interesting because this is actually what I'm starting to play around with. I mean, it certainly is something that's in my book that I'm focusing on it in self-ownership, right? Boom. See if you can clear up this glitching a little bit. It's glitching, I think, on the video a little. But and it's something that I'm starting to focus more and more on, and that we've started now talking on the show about a lot more. And I think that even in the realm of politics, that fundamentally it's about a belief system. And I think that there is a new and emergent belief system that is coming around. On the way here, I was listening to Andreas Antonopoulos. He's got a new video that says, "What is consensus? Rules without rulers." I would tell everybody to go check out that YouTube video, because he's laying out the vision of how we can have rules and no rulers.
Oh, dude.
But this is brand new in human consciousness.
Right.
And he's like, Bitcoin is the concretization and ability for us to experiment and to actually see, wait, you can have rules without rulers that can actually run giant global worldwide systems that are necessary for the well-being of all of humanity, and there's no ruler.
Right. So
there's no appeal to authority. Right? So I think that we're coming into that place, and I think it's important that people go in and examine their belief systems and try to start rewriting that software.
Yeah, dude.
Right?
Seriously.
Try to start understanding, because if we don't, we're just going to be stuck in the same old paradigm.
It goes back to what I was talking about earlier with the thoughts, emotion, and actions. You think that you're operating on that level where your thoughts, you can try to get your thoughts right, not think negative and all that stuff. Like, psychological inflation is true. It exists.
Oh, for sure.
You can think that you're thinking positively and that you're doing the right thoughts, emotions, and actions. But if the belief system is off,
that's right,
it's not going to work.
Well, but here's the interesting thing: the belief system is never off, right?
Right.
But your thoughts And this is like, the belief system is what you actually want. See, that's what people don't understand, is that they think, oh, I want that Lambo. Oh, I want this amount of money. Oh, I want this hot girlfriend. Oh, I want this job or whatever. But it's like, no, this is in your thinking. Because what you really want is what you get. Because if your belief system is really geared around, well, you're going to get whatever your belief system wants.
Right.
You're going to bring that into your life. You can't, no matter even if you say you want the Lambo, if your belief system is that you're not worth a Lambo,
exactly, nailed it.
You'll never get the Lambo.
Yeah, nailed it, dude. Nailed it.
Like, no matter how much you say you want it, and no matter what moves you take that you think in your conscious mind are going to get you there, you're never going to fucking get there. You're never going to get there. And if you don't believe that, like, one, it's possible for you to actually get that Lambo, right? Two, you have the ability to get that Lambo. And three, that you, on a cosmic or universal level, I'll use the word deserve. Right. Right? That you're worthy as a person of the Lambo. If you believe those three things, it's really not that hard to acquire a Lamborghini.
It's actually pretty easy. It would be natural.
If you to your core believe those things, acquiring a Lamborghini is really not that difficult.
Right.
And now there are people listening right now who are like, "Oh, that's not true. It is." And it is difficult to acquire. And it's like, well, you just told me what your belief system is. Of course you can't have the Lambo. Right. Of course you can't have it. Which is the same thing with the motto of the Free State Project, liberty in our lifetime. Right? If you truly, because I, to my core, and I know it because I've gone in and I've done the work and I've dealt with it, I wouldn't even be sitting here if I didn't believe all of this shit was possible.
Right. Nailed it.
I wouldn't even be sitting here. And it's like, and I think that people can tell that genuineness. And this is something, and you know, we've got Adam Kokesh on today. He has won me over. You know, when we first, it was like, was it the Saturday or Sunday before we did the first show? Right. We went and we heard him speak here in Vegas. And he was announcing, hey, he's going to run 2020. That was the first time I'd heard him announce it, was on that tour. I think it was like the last day or two of the tour. I admit, I walked out incredulous. I was like, bullshit, like this whole, I don't believe this guy that he would actually. Over the course of the last year and a half, I have to say, he's won me over because I do believe, like I look and I believe that he really believes in his heart, in his belief system, that this is possible. And it's in the belief of an individual that it is possible that changes the belief systems of other people. And it's in the changing of those belief systems of other people that makes shit happen. Yeah. That's what makes it happen.
And then that leads into the thoughts, emotions, and actions.
Exactly.
That's the steering wheel. And
exactly.
The belief system and that's the fuel or the car, whatever you want to call it. And that will move you towards where you want to be. Or, you know, one thing that I was looking at too, and I struggle with this, it was the idea of being present. So one thing that's commonly thrown around is, oh, you're not present. And I'm like, wait a minute. The only thing that can ever exist is presence.
That's it. Yeah, there is no future and no past.
Right.
Like but your focus can be on the future or the past, as opposed to what's happening in this moment right now.
Right.
And it's here now.
What I found was, where is my attention during the present moment?
Yes, it's attention. Right. Yeah.
And my attention was in the past or in the future or in negative things or whatever. So that goes back to the belief system, goes back to understanding that as well. And I think, you know, with what's coming up with Adam,
dude, I mean, these are huge revelations. This is big. Like and you know, I've said on this show, I've said to you, I do see the liberty movement as a spiritual movement.
Absolutely.
It's a spiritual movement. And I think that we should not leave this part of it out of the conversation. Mm-hmm. I think this is a key and incredibly important part of the conversation, because what are we trying to be free for in the first place?
Right.
The whole reason to be free and to be able to have the freedom to go out and have whatever peaceful voluntary interaction you want to have is so that you can expand your spirit. If it wasn't that, what's the point?
Well, that's the definition of life too.
That's it.
Expand.
That's it. Let's speaking of the liberty movement, let's go ahead and jump to Rachel Goldsmith. We'll talk with her a little bit about Liberty Forum, which is coming up. Then we'll do our stories. We'll get to Adam. We've got a full show today, dude. Full show.
I'm excited, dude.
You're gonna really have to be on the ball. Go ahead and give her a call on Hangouts over there. See if she picks up. And if she does, then and just full screen that whole thing. There you go. Let's see if she picks up. So Liberty Forum is taking place February 8th through 10th in Manchester, New Hampshire, and Rachel is the new interim executive director. We've had Matt Phillips on, the president of the Free State Project. He recently resigned to go and take on some personal projects, so we wish him well in all of that. Are we not?
Nothing yet.
Nothing? Nothing? Mm-mm. Well, leave it ringing. See what happens. Oh, maybe she's there. We're just not getting her video. I think I see her audio, but we're not getting her. Hello, are you Rachel? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you great, but we have zero video from you.
What the heck is going on?
Yeah, we're just here. No. Should we call you back? What do you think?
Yeah, let's try that.
Okay, let's do that. All right, so Christian, go ahead and give her a call back. Expand that out there. Let's see what we wind up with here.
Nope.
Do we got her? No. Ah, there she is. Christian, why don't you go ahead and throw over to us? Should be Rachel Skype. Hey. Okay, we've got you. Rachel Goldsmith, Executive Director of the Free State Project. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. The future is now.
There you go. So we were just talking a little bit about Liberty Forum, which I'm going to be there. I've been talking about it for the last several weeks, February 8th through 10th. So tell everybody what they can expect. I know that a new schedule just went up. Let's talk a little bit about what Liberty Forum is, what it represents to the Free State Project, and what's going on with it this year.
Absolutely. So this is our 11th annual Liberty Forum. In my opinion, it gets better every single year. It is one of the largest winter conferences, and it's a serious type of event. You know, we have activists from all over the country and the world come and talk about what kind of projects they are excited about, and how you can bring liberty to your life. Some of our speakers include Jack Spirko, Lou Perez, obviously, Vin Armani. And the idea is to activate really your life and make sure that wherever you are and wherever you come from, you can engage in liberty and freedom.
So we've had Matt Phillips on the show, and we've had some other Free Staters as well. I think actually in terms of sort of organizational affiliation, probably Free Staters has been, God, we've had a lot, come to think of it, right? Of all different veins. So we've got Adam Kokesh on the show a little later, and he's doing his 2020 run with the Libertarian Party. One thing, maybe if you could just talk a little bit about, it's been a while since we had somebody on just talking about New Hampshire. Maybe for the people who are perhaps a little new to the show or who don't know that much about the Free State Project or what's going on in New Hampshire, can you just give a little taste of how politically things are different there, culturally things are different there. What changes the Free State Project is trying to make, et cetera?
Yeah. I mean, so the Free State Project chose New Hampshire because it was already one of the most free states in the country. It gets freer every single year. If you look at Cato's analysis of, the most free states in America, New Hampshire has been #1 for 3 years in a row, which, in my opinion, is due in large part to the actions that participants take when they get here. We have individuals who are focused on legislative changes, so they'll run. And one of the interesting things about New Hampshire is that we have the highest ratio of representatives to citizens in the world, actually, which is really fun. You know every single person that represents you pretty well if you are interested in that sort of thing, which means that, having those conversations with the elected officials goes from, trying to call and email or whatever to, you see them at a party and you just strike up a conversation. So it's a very intimate kind of relationship that you can develop, again, if you're politically minded. To me, some of the most impactful ways that people make a difference here is they start businesses, or they start nonprofit organizations. Free Staters have started over 100 active businesses and nonprofits in New Hampshire, and that's not even including all of the learning experiences.
Right.
So that's pretty amazing. And then, of course, there's a social community where, there's anarchy clubs, there are workspaces, co-working spaces that you go to, and the only people who are there are your fellow Free Staters and liberty lovers, which really makes the experience of starting your own businesses or starting your own social communities that much easier. You're starting off on a position of already agreeing on the NAP, for example.
So I also just recently, a couple things that I recently read that maybe they didn't fully surprise me. One didn't, and that was it was CoinDesk, I believe, that did the top 10 cryptocurrency friendly cities in the world, and Portsmouth, New Hampshire was #1. And
yeah.
I think that it was out of the 10, it was the only one in the Western Hemisphere. So we have a huge crypto audience. I'm sure they're probably like, what the hell? But yeah, it's big out there. And then I read as well, and I wasn't even aware of this, and I guess this liberty meets prosperity. New Hampshire has the highest median income of any of the 50 states.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of really amazing stuff that the population already had available. We have one of the highest levels of education in the country, highest prosperity, things like that. But yeah, to get back to that crypto conversation, the very first crypto ATM was invented right here in Manchester.
Oh, wow.
Talk about, making liberty part of your real life, practical access to this, kind of exciting opportunities to get away from state control, essentially.
Awesome. I'm excited to get back up there. So, Christian, if you want to just throw up the information, New Hampshire Liberty Forum, February 8th through 10th in Manchester, New Hampshire. You can go to nhlibertyforum.com and you can use the coupon code VIN10. You'll get a 10% discount. So, Rachel Goldsmith, thank you very much for being on the show. I look forward to meeting you. It'll be my first time meeting you when I'm up there next month, and I look forward to working on much more liberty with you and the other people at Free State Project.
I'm excited to be a part of your moving process. I'm going to get you over here as soon as possible.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for being on. We'll talk to you again soon, I know, and I'll see you next month.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
All right, Christian. So we've got some stories to get into. Yeah, go ahead and close that out. It'll bring you back to... There we go. Okay. We've got some stories to get into, dude. Before we do, just want to make one final announcement because the registration closes on Friday. I'm leaving it open, but it's already at a point now where Anyway, Code from Go. Code from Go. The response has been fantastic. There's a lot of people out there who clearly want to learn to code, and I am super excited that I'm going to be able to share information with you guys. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine a couple of days ago about how I'm approaching this and what's different about this particular educational project or endeavor. And we were talking about that it's more like, we're approaching it more like tradesmen rather than academics. You're not going to be sitting through some class that's going through a ton of theory, because you don't need that to be able to do 90% of the coding that you're going to do. We're going to teach you the nuts and bolts, and you're going to be able to get out there and actually start building things. And then as you want to expand your knowledge, both theoretical, historical, about software and about programming, then you will be able to take that on because you'll have the base level knowledge. Right? It's kind of like teaching you to be a mechanic, and then if you want to go on to learn like automotive engineering, you can go on to do that. So codefromgo.com. These are the coding classes. It's six seminars in 3 weeks, plus some that are live, and you can also check them out on demand, plus some office hours. This is the part that I'm a little worried about. I did not know that the demand was going to be like this. Everybody's going to get the personal attention that they need. I'm dedicated to that. It just looks like it's going to be a lot more work for me. So everybody's going to get it, but Vin's going to do a lot more work. Maybe next time I'll put less people, but there will be a next opportunity. So I'm planning on doing at least 4 of these basics courses throughout the year, at least 4, and then there will be additional courses as well to take you down some different paths, including automation and cryptocurrency, of course, learning how to actually program your own wallets. So codefromgo.com, learn to code by coding. Christian, let's go ahead and go to these stories since we're talking cryptocurrency. By way of cryptocurrency, let's get to this news number 1. So we have reached the point now, I think, where we're going to step into the next phase of this crypto thing. We had Rob Danielson on the show last week with TipperBot. I'm working on a project myself with Countermarkets, with our secret project. You may have seen Countermarkets kind of promoting that, also using Bitcoin Cash. We've got things growing on Ethereum. I think that this year is going to be the breakout year. But there's a lot of voices out there, and it's a popular topic. I'm getting hit up by all my friends now, people asking me, oh, have you heard of this coin? Have you heard of this coin? What I want to warn against, and what I'm going to be speaking a lot about, and what I have spoken a lot about already, is if we're going to move forward with some principles and a belief system, I think that the belief system that we go with is we ask the question, does another individual have the right to violently restrict your ability to do X? That could be anything from speaking your mind, gathering together with like-minded people, practicing your religion, keeping and bearing arms, growing, possessing, and consuming plants, so long as all of this is done peacefully and with the blockchain math. Does another individual have the right to violently restrict your ability to peacefully do math? And we need to be sure that as we move forward, even in what we speak out against, that we are careful that we are not inviting the idea that it is legitimate for someone else to violently enforce their preferences against other people. There's a recent article. We're getting into, now there's a lot of money moving. I want to throw up this article because it's very important to talk about. This is the first sort of shot over the bow. We need to be careful that we are not, as Christian so rightly says often, that we are not inviting the vampire in by our actions. And I think that this is one, I want to address it. This is this insider story. This is from Medium. Somebody writing about Coinbase insider trading, Litecoin edition. This is the guy from Bitfinex, which is a blog that exposes fraud at Bitfinex. But again, you got to be careful what you ask for because you just might get it. So here's the article. I have long suspected insider trading regarding Litecoin and Coinbase GDAX. The problem is, I did not want to mention this publicly because of Charlie Lee's cult following, and I'd be pissing off too many people at once. Now that Charlie Lee has admitted to dumping all of his Litecoins after all-time highs, I believe it's a good time to bring this up, especially after concerns of insider trading regarding Bitcoin Cash. Charlie Lee and Coinbase. Problem 1. Charlie Lee was an employee of Coinbase now Charlie Lee is the inventor of Litecoin. Charlie Lee was an employee of Coinbase when Coinbase added Litecoin, a cryptocurrency he created by simply copying Bitcoin and changing the name and adjusting a few variables and a hash function taken script from another cryptocurrency. Problem 2. Charlie Lee likely had significant holdings of Litecoin while he worked for Coinbase, and therefore may have asked many times for Coinbase to add Litecoin. Being an engineer at Coinbase, he may also be responsible for implementing the code to add Litecoin to Coinbase. My aside here, he was not just an engineer, he was the chief of engineering at Coinbase. Problem 3. The Litecoin community was essentially dead prior to being listed on Coinbase on Reddit. The only people who wanted Litecoin listed were people hodling their Litecoins and presumably Charlie Lee. In my opinion, there's a conflict of interest going on between Coinbase and the creator of Litecoin, Charlie Lee. Out of all the other cryptocurrencies they could add, they add the one with a practically dead Reddit community and no transaction activity. Conclusion. In my opinion, the circumstances regarding Litecoin, Coinbase, and Charlie Lee are suspicious. If I was bringing on someone that created their own cryptocurrency and I knew they wanted me to list it on my exchange, I would have asked them to liquidate their positions in it prior to bringing them on. So Christian, here's the first issue. We're using the term insider trading. Now, insider trading is a legal term this is what Martha Stewart went to jail for. Right? This is what they took Martha Stewart away for. It's the idea that if you are at a publicly traded company or you are associated with a publicly traded company and you get some sort of proprietary business information, you're not allowed to trade based on that information. But that assumes that you are under a regulatory structure, which means that you are under the state. But the whole idea is rules, but no rulers. There is no regulation of cryptocurrency. There is no regulation of this market. We don't want regulation in this market. What that means is that on occasion, someone will have some information, they will trade based on that information, and they will get rich. Now, it's up to us as individuals, if we want to participate in this market, just like anybody participating in a free market, you got to do your own research. It's buyer beware.
Right.
And there's a huge market for this is why you need a free press in a free market, because then there's a huge demand for people who are out there getting the information to share with people.
Absolutely.
Right? And so it's like, don't be a child. Grow up. I think that's so much of what this movement is about, right? And it goes back to our conversation at the beginning of the show. The growth of our consciousness is about when we evolve, when our consciousness evolves, this is wisdom. Yeah. This is literally moving from child to adult. Right. And it doesn't just happen on the individual level. Of course, it happens on a cultural level. And I think if we look back to previous cultures, like, if we look back to the Declaration of Independence as compared to the monarchy, and you look at the monarchy and there's a guy sitting on a throne with a gold crown and a scepter, and you're like, this dude is in a costume. This is childish. As compared to the individuals who are like, we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Those are the adults in the room.
Yep.
Those are the adults in the room. Their consciousness has expanded. So now we're in a place where our consciousness is expanding, but people are they're back in this old time. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Insider trading. The dude's the chief engineer at an exchange. He also happens to have created his own cryptocurrency. And it gets added to that exchange. Of course it gets added to that exchange.
Who in that position would not want to add their own coin or their own project to the...
Like, of course!
Right. One thing that's very interesting about this too, and I think it's overlooked in the whole freedom, the understanding the technology of freedom, how to act with freedom in the most free way or whatever.
Go on.
So basically, what I'm getting at is with great power comes great responsibility.
Absolutely.
With freedom also comes responsibility, and people want freedom without being responsible.
And this is why I say that's fucking childish.
Exactly.
Like, that's what a child wants. That's what a child wants. They want to be able to do whatever they want to do all day, but yet have their parents pay their rent and their bills and give them. And it's like, that's entitlement.
Right.
And that's exactly what you don't want. Like, entitled individuals are the worst people, and they don't create anything. It's the people who say, you know what? I'm happening to the world is not happening to me. It's my responsibility. Nobody said anybody had to participate in cryptocurrency. Nobody said anybody had to buy Litecoin. Nobody said anybody had to buy Litecoin. No one is forcing you to do that. Now, Charlie Lee has been out in front. He calls himself Satoshi Light. He's been out in front saying, I'm the creator of Litecoin from the beginning. It's been public that he's the chief engineer at Coinbase.
Which requires a lot of responsibility, too.
And he's taken all the responsibility. And, okay, he sold all of his Litecoin when it was at the all-time high. And it's his fucking Litecoin.
Right, exactly.
It's his Litecoin. Are you allowed to sell your Litecoin at the all-time high? Why is the creator under some different rules than you or I are under? Right?
And that's a smart move. It also shows that it shows that he saw something that he believed in a little bit more or whatever, or who knows what it was,
or he just needed the money.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going on in his personal life.
Right.
You know what I mean? We don't know. We don't know anything more about this dude. Or he just wanted the Lambo. He was like, look, I just want the Lambo.
I had enough already.
Who knows? But you can't say that you are a supporter of cryptocurrency and then go complaining and whining about things like this, because what it does is you're building the government's case against you.
Yep.
You're building the government's case to say these exchanges need to be regulated. This cryptocurrency needs to be regulated. Now, the blockchains themselves won't be regulated because they can't be regulated. I'm telling you, everybody, go and watch this Andreas Antonopoulos. It's only 20 minutes long. What is consensus? Rules without rulers. So good. So good. Go and watch it. Watch it a couple times.
I'm going to check it out today.
Yes, dude. Oh, it's so good. Because he even says that. He says, you can't regulate the blockchains. Now, you can regulate the things around them, like the exchanges, like the side chains, like Lightning networks. That's the biggest worry, is that that's regulatable. That's the biggest concern I have with Lightning channels. So it's very important that people realize that governments they need only an excuse. And if you give them an excuse and the excuse comes from inside the community, that's a huge problem. Huge problem. So we're already dealing with beginnings of clampdowns. It's funny because, we did the is Bitcoin Cash decentralized or central? We did that whole thing. And the biggest concern was that, the Chinese, they're going to take over the mining and they're going to control all of the mining. Remember?
Yeah.
That's the Chinese are going to take over the mining. And I was like, I am not worried at all that the Chinese are going to take over the mining and do a 51% attack. Oh, and what do the Chinese actually do? It's not take over the mining. Throw up this China mine. This is from TechCrunch. China is reportedly moving to clamp down on Bitcoin miners. China banned Bitcoin, ICOs, and now it appears to be clamping down on Chinese miners, an important group estimated to produce some 3/4 of the world's supply of Bitcoin. According to a leaked January 2nd memo from the leading group of Internet Financial Risk Remediation, the country's internet finance regulator, which initiated the clampdown on Bitcoin, Bitcoin miners should make a, quote, orderly exit from China because they have consumed, quote, huge amounts of resources and have stoked speculation of virtual currencies. Details of the memo were posted on Twitter by Chinese blockchain industry executive Ellie Zhang and confirmed by Quartz. Throw up this mine tweet. This is from Ellie Zhang's Twitter. Notice from China, special rectification on risks in Internet Finance Department to local government to make a plan before January 10th. Quote, lead mining factories quit gradually. BTC, Bitcoin mining with central bank official chop. Prepare for the roller coaster. You can come back to the China Mine article here. The group itself doesn't control national energy usage, but it is an influential political vehicle that's led by the deputy governor of the People's Bank of China, the PBC, Pan Gongsheng. To remove miners, the group asked its local offices to look into policies around price, tax, land usage, and environmental concerns. Its local representatives must report back on their progress of removing miners in their region on a monthly basis, according to Quartz. The situation is complicated by the fact that many miners, and particularly those in China, make use of cheap power or flock to locations where there's excess capacity. In some cases, mining businesses partner with local governments to ensure a steady supply of electricity at discounted rates, with a portion of the profits returned to the local authorities. I think we call that kickbacks. That's offered a welcome economic boost in regions where more traditional industries are struggling. So, Christian, actually what's happening is the Chinese government is scared that these guys might obtain political power, that these capitalists are getting a foothold, and so they're shutting it down. Gradual shutdown. Now, gradual shutdown's good. Gradual shutdown, if it's gradual enough, is going to be okay because the difficulty adjustment will be able to happen in a gradual way, and you know, these chains won't grind to a halt like they would if all of these miners were suddenly shut down. This is not the Chinese taking control of mining. This is the Chinese banning mining.
Oh, shit.
So the whole worry about the Chinese are going to take over, Jihan, the evil, nefarious Dr. Wu, Dr. Wu. Oh, you don't think that it's a possibility? And I'm like, it's not a possibility. I kept saying, it's not. It's not. You're living in a fantasy world. Nefarious Dr. Wu, Dr. Wu, the Chinese are going to take over. Actually, no, they're not. And what's going to happen is Jihan Wu and them are going to move. They're going to have to move.
They're going to have to.
They're going to have to move. The profit margins are not going to be as good, or some country's going to offer them a sweetheart deal. I think, my belief is, mark my words, Iceland.
Huh.
I believe it's all about Iceland. I believe that's the move because they have all this geothermal energy because they have all those volcanoes and shit and the geysers. So they have almost free energy and it's cold. You can cool your machines with just the air from the outside.
Yeah. It's fucking cold there, dude.
It's cold as shit.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got the geothermal and you've got the cold air. Match made in heaven, dude. I think Iceland is going to turn out to be like the hub. And they're very libertarian there, actually, in Iceland. It's great for them.
Yeah, actually, I went there, what was it, 7, 8 years ago?
Were you performing?
Yeah.
Yeah?
That was amazing, dude.
Yeah? How are the people?
Cool.
Mance just got back from there. Mance Raider just got back from there.
It was really fucking expensive, though.
Oh, really?
Really expensive to even, like, I think went to Pizza Hut and got, like, a pizza and a Coke, and it was, like, outrageous, in USD at least.
Crazy. Well, we'll see, but that is my belief. Already some talk about where it's going to be in Europe. Bitmain already looking to Europe. I think it's going to be Iceland. Maybe not. Maybe not. Throw up this Europe. So this is Bitmain. This is from CoinDesk. Bitmain looks to Europe as China cools to Bitcoin miners. Bitmain, the China-based Bitcoin mining giant, has set up a new subsidiary in Switzerland. A report from Swiss-based news service Handelszeitung states the company has based the subsidiary Bitmain Switzerland in Zug. The locale is the home of the Crypto Valley, an area where a number of cryptocurrency and blockchain startups have headquartered thanks to a permissive regulatory environment. Bernd Lapp is based there, actually, in Zug, Switzerland. The move, which comes amid reports that the Chinese government wants to slowly but surely quash the country's mining ecosystem, is said to be a notable one for the firm, according to statements. This, sources say, would be accomplished by curtailing access to supportive tax policies, as well as the land and utilities needed to run a power-hungry Bitcoin mine. According to Handelszeitung, Bitmain is eyeing the Zug office as a way to grow its presence in Europe and really beyond its home base in China. Bitmain Switzerland will play a key role in our global expansion, Bitmain told the paper. So, it's a free market. They're going to move around. I mean, cryptocurrency has no borders, right? So, it's just going to be, where is the place where this is going to be the most profitable? This is how the miners are moving. It's clear, like, what's so weird to me is that there ever was this sort of fear that the state would want to take over mining this stuff to destroy it. That's people who don't understand how states work. States get all of their resources through theft. States need production within their borders so that they can steal it. That's how they operate. That's the reason that states want internally for things to be prosperous, is because if it's not, they have nothing to steal. That's the whole idea. The trade-off, however, is the more authoritarian the state, the less prosperous. The more free the state, the more prosperous. New Hampshire, highest median income. Highest median income in the nation. It's also the live free or die state and the home of the Free State Project. Coincidence?
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and the states that are the most socialist, that have the most socialist control, overall, low median income. You might have some, like California, you might have some very, very rich people in California, but you've also got some of the poorest people in America in California. You're not able to spread the prosperity around unless you have liberty, right? And on that note, as we've talked about before, again with the vampire, inviting the vampire in, want to just talk about a little bit about this surveillance. Again, about be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. So this is news number 2. We've talked about the surveillance state on this show, and we've talked about the fact that you by putting all of your photos up online, if you're going to put all your photos up online and the location of where you are, even down to what you're eating, and if you're going to have good old Alexa, aka wiretap, in your house, you can't really then say that you're against the surveillance state, because you're giving them everything that more than they could possibly imagine. You're inviting the vampire in. You're participating. All of these companies that you are allowing to record your voice and that you are giving all of your data about where you are, what you're doing, about your family, they can see the inside of your house, even down to your bedroom, and you're putting that out into the world. They're all up on Capitol Hill. They're all up talking to the heads of the CIA and the NSA, and you're giving them this. But yet, of course, there's going to be people up in arms especially when it's Trump. You have this. This is warrantless. This is from Motherboard from Vice. The House just voted to expand warrantless surveillance in the U.S. A similar bill will now be considered in the Senate. The U.S. House of Representatives approved a controversial amendment to Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, that would effectively expand the warrantless surveillance of American citizens. The bill was passed by a split vote of 256 to 164. 191 Republicans and 65 Democrats voted for the measure, and 119 Democrats and 45 Republicans voted against it. Prior to the final vote, an amendment that would require intelligence agencies to get warrants before searching the communications of Americans gathered through the Act was voted on. It was rejected by a vote of 233 to 183. Created in 2008, FISA allows for the warrantless surveillance of any foreign person that any intelligence agency deems a target. Intelligence agencies have abused this power to also surveil American citizens as a result of two loopholes known as backdoor search and about collection. Backdoor search is a roundabout way of monitoring Americans' electronic communications. It allows intelligence agencies to peer into the communications of any American who has communicated with a foreign target. About collection, on the other hand, allowed intelligence agencies to monitor the communications of any American who even mentions information about a foreign target in electronic communications. So, if an American includes the email address, phone number, or other information about a foreign target in a communication to another American, their communications would be subject to surveillance even if that person wasn't in contact with the actual target. After about collection came under scrutiny by the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, the NSA voluntarily abandoned the practice in 2017. The amendment just passed by the House of Representatives reverses the NSA's decision and would codify the practice as law. An amendment similar to the one passed by the House today has been drafted by the Senate Intelligence Committee. FISA is set to expire on January 19th, meaning the Senate will likely vote on the bill in the next week. So, Christian, here we go. At some point, you've given so much information out, and that when you give information to Facebook or Instagram, it says right in the terms of service, that becomes their information. Like, that becomes their data. They can use it as they want, which includes giving it to the government. At some point, people have to decide, like, because you can't have it both ways. You can't both be totally not for privacy in your private life, but then be against someone, usurping your privacy. If you want privacy, and privacy leads to prosperity. There's a reason why we have the Fourth Amendment, which is against warrantless search and seizures of people's papers and whatnot. Like, that's the key to prosperity. You got to have a level of privacy. You can't have the state knowing everything.
It also, when you said that, in my mind, what I thought is, if you have something that is private, usually it's very valuable.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like the PIN code of your ATM card.
Exactly.
Right? You want to, anything that you would consider private is what's valuable, which people need to think about when they're like, I think it's crazy when people are like posting, tons of pictures of their children and then like where their children are going to be at various different times. I'm like, are you crazy? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, for what? What is the purpose of this? What do you get out of it? The negatives are far greater. Right? And when we're talking about cryptocurrency, it's like solutions that allow for maximum privacy are going to allow for maximum prosperity. The people are not realizing that these are simply thieves. They're simply thieves who want to take whatever information they can and use it to steal from you. That's what they use it for. They're trying to take your property, your liberty, or your life. That's all that the state does. And whether it's the state or whether it's just a straight up criminal, right? That's what they want to take. They want to take your life, they want to take your property, they want to take your liberty. If things are valuable to you, keep them private. And that's also what agorism is about. That's what a gray market is about. Now, great story about this, when they're like, well, if you have nothing to hide, it shouldn't be a problem to you. And it's like, no, you have something. It's not about hiding. It's not that you avoid theft because you have something to hide. It's just you have something that you don't want stolen. And that goes to this Uber story, which I thought was great. From Bloomberg, Uber back at it again with their secret tools. Uber's secret tool for keeping the cops in the dark. At least 24 times, the San Francisco headquarters locked down equipment in foreign offices to shield files from police raids. This is from Bloomberg Businessweek. In May 2015, about 10 investigators for the Quebec Tax Authority burst into Uber Technology Incorporated's office in Montreal. The authorities believed Uber had violated tax laws and had a warrant to collect evidence. Managers on site knew what to do, say people with knowledge of the event. Like managers at Uber's hundreds of offices abroad, they've been trained to page a number that alerted specially trained staff at company headquarters in San Francisco. When the call came in, staffers quickly remotely logged off every computer in the Montreal office, making it practically impossible for the authorities to retrieve the company records they'd obtained a warrant to collect. The investigators left without any evidence. Most tech companies don't expect police to regularly raid their offices, but Uber isn't most companies. The ride-hailing startup's reputation for flouting local labor laws and taxi rules has made it a favorite target for law enforcement agencies around the world. That's where this remote system called Ripley comes in. From spring 2015 until late 2016, Uber routinely used Ripley to thwart police raids in foreign countries, say 3 people with knowledge of the system. Allusions to its nature can be found in a smattering of court filings, but its details, scope, and origin haven't been previously reported. The Uber HQ team overseeing Ripley could remotely change passwords and otherwise lock up data on company-owned smartphones, laptops, and desktops, as well as shut down the devices. This routine was initially called the Unexpected Visitor Protocol. Employees aware of its existence eventually took to calling it Ripley after Sigourney Weaver's flamethrower-wielding hero in the Alien movies. The nickname was inspired by a Ripley line in Aliens after the acid-blooded extraterrestrials easily best a squad of ground troops. Nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. Other companies have shut off computers during police raids, then granted officers access after reviewing a warrant. And Uber has reason to be cautious with the sensitive information it holds about customers and their locations around the world. Ripley stands out partly because it was used regularly, at least 24 times, the people with knowledge of the system say, and partly because some employees involved say they felt the program slowed investigations that were legally sound in the local office's jurisdictions. Quote, obstruction of justice definitions vary widely by country, says Ryan Kalo, a cyber law professor at the University of Washington. What's clear is that Uber maintained a general pattern of legal arbitrage. Quote, like every company with offices around the world, we have security procedures in place to protect corporate and customer data, Uber said in a statement. When it comes to government investigations, it is our policy to cooperate with all valid searches and requests for data. Uber has already drawn criminal inquiries from the U.S. Department of Justice for at least 5 other alleged schemes. In February, the New York Times exposed Uber's use of a software tool called Grayball, which showed enforcement officers a fake version of its app to protect drivers from getting ticketed. Ripley's existence gives officials looking into other Uber incidents reason to wonder what they may have missed when their raids were stymied by locked computers or encrypted files. So, Christian, encrypted files, locked computers. Is it your property? Are they your files? Like, you can certainly, these governments can certainly subpoena this data and say, hey, we want this data, but they don't know what data they are looking for. So they can't give a proper subpoena. They're going in there, busting in, trying to just take everything, and then they're going to search through until they find something. No, that's not justice. That's, again, an attempt at theft. Taxation is theft. Like, this is so important for people to understand. These are thieves. These are people looking for a way to take. They don't know what they're looking for. It's like a thief coming into your house and rifling through your drawers looking for cash or jewelry or electronics. They don't necessarily know what's in the house, but they're looking for the valuable shit, and then they're going to take it. That's exactly what these guys are doing. With guns, knocking down doors. But we have the opportunity to have a system that operates where there are rules but no rulers. And again, nobody's forcing anybody to take an Uber. Nobody's forcing anybody to drive for Uber. These are people participating in voluntary acts. And when Swarm City, they've solved a lot of problems in the last year that were problems with the Ethereum network overall. When Swarm City goes live and there's no door to knock down, then they're fucked. And that's why the blockchain is so important. And that's why we can't be asking, if we want to have privacy, we can't be asking for the regulation of what we already have. It's very important. And what we need to be doing is quite the reverse. At every opportunity, we need to be pulling down the regulations completely eliminating them, or enshrining, as there is in the law in Nevada and as there is with the money transfer law in New Hampshire, enshrining the fact that, no, the government will keep their grubby hands off of this. So either get it out of the criminal code or enshrine it to say the government has no place to do it. We'll talk about some of that with Adam Kokesh, because we are coming up in the next hour. Let's go ahead and go to break. While we're at break, see if you can get him up on the line, and then we will come back. I think this will be a great conversation with Adam Kokesh. Let's go ahead and go to break.
The spirit of art. The spirit of technology. The spirit of individuality. Baby Vodka. An ultra-premium spirit conceived by Vin Armani. Handcrafted and distilled in Las Vegas by master distiller George Rotz. Each bottle, a celebration of the individual, custom engraved and hand-signed by the creators. Each element blending in harmony to create a beautiful experience beyond imagination. Baby Vodka, the spirit of Vegas. Created by Vin Armani. Tailored by Christian Rays. Available for purchase exclusively with cryptocurrency at babyvodka.com.
Welcome back to the Vin Armani Show. We are streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Vin Armani. Also on Twitter and Periscope at Vin Armani is my handle there. We are proud members of the Activist Post Podcast Network, so you can check out all of our audio archives at activistpost.com. So before we get to our guests, just want to talk to you a little bit about Countermarkets. Countermarkets at countermarkets.com, trends and strategies for maximum freedom. This is our January issue that's out right now. My article this month is about earning cryptocurrency, how to acquire cryptocurrency without using dirty fiat or even your bank account buying on Coinbase. A woman tweeted me a couple days ago saying that she had put through a Coinbase transaction to try to buy some Bitcoin, $1,600 worth, and she said it had been 16 days and she still hadn't received her Bitcoin. So she totally could have gone to a Bitcoin ATM and got it the same day. This is about educating yourself, and I think it goes right back to, as we've been saying, with great freedom comes great responsibility. That means you got to be responsible for your money. This is if we want to have a world where there are rules but no rulers, we're going to have to govern ourselves, and part of that means do your own research. One of the best ways to do that right now, especially on these topics, is this monthly newsletter, Countermarkets. You can go and get your first issue for free. You can do that at countermarkets.com. So with somebody who believes in great freedom and is taking great responsibility, our guest today, let's go to Adam Kokesh.
Hey, man, thanks so much for having me on again.
Hey, dude, a man who almost needs no introduction, activist, author, and presidential candidate coming up for 2020. Adam, thank you for coming back on the show.
Hey, man, my pleasure as always, and it's been really, I finally gotten, I go back and forth with Twitter, where, because like compared to Facebook, it's really relatively honest, right? Like compared to the censorship of Facebook, yeah, Twitter. I'm not trying to defend Twitter because, you know, they've banned people, they've censored stuff, they're shadow banning. Like, yeah, and now we see it's probably worse than we thought. But like, it's been really fun. I've been getting much more like natively engaged, genuinely, present on Twitter, and it's fun. And I'm starting to get that you know that there's a unique conversation there. And I think Facebook, you know, like, let's get Facebook obsolete. Like, let's replace it with Steemit, you know, YouTube, let's replace it with DTube, you know, all the podcasting stuff now. We've got D-Sound, there's D-Live, and, you know, I know some of these technologies are still very much in their infancy and still kind of a little bit of a pain in the butt to work with, but it is worth it. We are making the transition to open source social networking happen right now. I thought we didn't need, you know, I was thinking diaspora, like way back in the day. That's what I was promoting. And now to see, like, you know, no, it's really happening around blockchains. It's sort of like, yeah, of course it's going to happen that way. And I've been, you know, really a lot more focused there too as well. But it's been fun. Finally, after, you know, 10 years of activism now, having enough of a sense of the conversation in social media to be like, yeah, I'm engaged. I want to do this, and I'm getting back with Adam versus the Man. But like, it's been really fun, like seeing you on Twitter, and you kind of have a, I'm learning from you, you know, like your engagement style and how you take on trolls and how you like stimulate conversation and how you get, you know, like really good back and forth going. And I'm glad for I'm appreciative of all the times you've included me in those exchanges. So thank you.
Dude, I mean, look, you are someone who's inspired me with your style of dialogue around liberty. There's a lot of the tactics and a lot of the ways that over the years you've brought people around. What's so interesting about it is that and I was talking with a friend of mine about this, is it's actually so great for me to walk through some of the dialogue and some of the debate, and you know, you'd be surprised at how many people are just observing. Like, there are a lot of people who, you know, are observing and going through these threads, and it's really changing their minds. You know what I mean? It's a powerful medium. I wish that they weren't banning people, but you know, Twitter is a powerful medium. Are you on the road? Are you on the road right now?
Yes, I am in the mobile studio of No Force One. We are in. We're in.
No Force One.
We are somewhere between Amarillo and Dallas.
Okay. So you're in the, I can't do it. No Force One. That's amazing. Okay, so tell people, for the people who don't know the whole platform, because I've got something prepared, a conversation that I want to have with you. I want to tell you, and I was talking with Christian about this earlier in the show. You've really swayed me on this idea that you know, and as somebody who's a hardcore anarchist, you've actually swayed me on this, on what it is that you're doing. I do truly believe there's something there. For the people who don't know what the platform is or what your plan is, this movement, and I think it may very well become a movement. What's the basis of this? What's the philosophy? What are you trying to do here?
Well, first, I just want to say that we are a movement of skeptics and doubters and questioners, and that's awesome. That's how we get to this point, by questioning authority. And similarly, for people who I'm asking to invest in my campaign, and it's truly not about me. The actual name of the campaign committee, which is going to be announced tomorrow, this is a really exciting time coming up here, we had to put my name in it, but it's Adam Kokesh American Referendum Project, because fundamentally what we are doing is turning the American presidential election into a referendum on whether or not the federal government should be allowed to exist at all. So when I win the presidency, the platform is go in, sign one executive order. And in that executive order, we declare the federal government of no authority. I'm going in like a bankruptcy agent, okay? We're gonna release everyone from federal prisons who's there for victimless crimes, especially political prisoners like Ross Ulbricht, Schaefer Cox, so many others. It's almost too many to name how many political prisoners there are in the United States and people who are in jail for victimless crimes. We end up with 50 independent states plus territories plus actually sovereign native nations now after a peaceful, responsible process. And so, you know, when I suggest this, oh, I'm running for president, I mean, it's really important to say that I'm running for not president more than running for president. I'm running against the presidency itself. It's time for America to assert what we all really know, that this is an un-American institution, what the federal government is under any concept of what America is supposed to be. And we don't have to be united under one government to be united in American values. But to people of your particular political persuasion, which is you know, very, very close to mine, if not identical, depending on, you know, how you want to categorize and label stuff, you're going to be especially skeptical. And, you know, after the tour that we did this last year, we saw that there were enough people even in my support base who were very skeptical of this plan. And they came out and they heard my presentation. They were like, yeah, I see what you're doing. I see how this unites people. I see how this has the potential to unite left, right, and center against the common enemy that is big centralized government through what I described in my book, Freedom, as localization, a decentralization of political authority. And one of the things that's so wonderful about this is that we don't have to, you and I don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to agree with most voters, right? It doesn't matter if you want government to do this, that, or the other. Are you okay with it doing just that in your community and not forcing it on your neighboring communities in a giant tie everybody together in a one-size-fits-nobody solution as provided by government, which is, of course, inherently violent and corrupt? So the conversations that I've been having with a lot of people now are like, oh, wow, Adam, Man, I'm kind of sorry I doubted you for so long, because now I should have taken the time to just see what you were getting at. And we have a very important video coming out, probably as I'm speaking, it's uploading, of my speech from the tour that really lays that out. And more people go, yeah, this could be the idea whose time has come. And one way or another, it's an incredible way to bring people together. It's an incredible way to spread the message. And this is not an educational campaign. We are drawing a line in the sand. The federal government should not be allowed to continue to exist. And by drawing that line in the sand, not only are we going to bring a lot of people onto the side of righteousness, but if we are at that point in human history, if we are ready for that, we are going to carry out this plan, and we are going to, as Americans, once again lead the world forward towards freedom, as we did in the first American Revolution.
So I want to tell you how I've come around in the last year and a half, I guess, because I think it was 2 days before we did our first show of the Vin Armani Show, where our guest was Lynn Ulbricht. Christian and I went and saw you speak here in Vegas. A little church out, I guess it was pretty close to here, maybe in Henderson. And we heard this for the first time. And I must say, I walked out completely incredulous, right? I was like, what the fuck? But I will tell you how I came around. Not only, of course, speaking with you, and you've laid this out, and you've been principled in your approach to this. That impressed me. But how I came around to this was, in the discussion about legalization of marijuana that has happened in the last year and with the laws, I'm a supporter only of complete decriminalization. And people have asked me, well, what does that look like? And I say, well, you take the word marijuana out of all the criminal and civil codes. It's just simply not in there. Same thing, I was on a panel discussing the decriminalization of sex work in New Hampshire. Representative Elizabeth Edwards had written this bill, and I said, this is not decriminalization. They said, well, what does decriminalization look like? I said, well, you take the word prostitution completely out of all the civil and criminal codes. And then
what part of government has nothing to do with it?
Exactly.
Not clear here. Yeah.
And then with the two blockchain laws that Nevada had, which is, so that's decriminalization. But then this idea of kind of enshrinement that happened with the blockchain laws in Nevada and the blockchain money service business law in New Hampshire, where they said, no, we're going to actually put into law that government cannot touch this, just like the Bill of Rights about, our rights to free speech and religion and owning guns, etc. And when I started thinking about this idea of real decriminalization or enshrinement, I said, but what does that look like at the top level? like, what would the very top, like, ideal be? And I was like, oh, it's what Adam's saying. And that's why I think that potentially there's this movement here that it's like, you're sort of this beacon at the top for this thing, but why not have all these other people at the local level doing these, really take these things off the books, take this department and get rid of it? And I think that's why there's a movement. So you've swayed me, I'm saying, and I hope that, and you had said the first time I heard you talk about this, that if it's not 2020, that you're going to keep running on this thing as long as it takes. If that's the case, I do believe that there's something here, and I think that it may take the Libertarian Party, if we can get them to accept it, to the next level. My question, though, is this. So you've swayed me, but...
Well, before you get to that, if I may address just one little thing at the end there, you said, if we can get the Libertarian Party to support this, and first of all, we already are people of this perspective, people who believe in localization, people who believe in freedom as an ethical principle, people who go, oh, we can, holy crap, we are being presented with a serious opportunity to effectively vote nobody for president. Yes, I will, there's no better option. You know, like it now, and if someone comes along with a better plan than me, or, you know, I mean, if The Rock and Oprah are competing over who has the best plan to dissolve the federal government, I will drop out let them handle it and take credit for being the first one with the idea. You know, it really is not about me. It is about this line in the sand. And the people who make up the true base of the LP are already, I think most, not all, not even a supermajority, but most on board. And what we've been doing over the past year is organizing to fill all the empty delegate slots at the 2018 convention. And we are going to make localization part of the party platform, and we are going to pass a resolution about unity in the party in such a way that it means that we are inclusive of people who want to maintain their identities as liberals or conservatives. But if you support this direction of freedom, if you support localization, the Libertarian Party is your party. This is how we make it a political force instead of a debate club. And it's not so much about you know, taking over or, you know, defeating the old guard. It's just, no, let's bring that true base. Let's bring the youth. Let's bring the people of this philosophical persuasion into their rightful place as a voice within the Libertarian Party. You know, regardless of who ends up, you know, coming in, we know that it's people who are not, you know, the Gary Johnson supporters or the Bob Barr supporters, you know, those types. And it's, I think what we've seen is that this campaign has given people a reason to show up, and it looks like it's going to be a lot more than enough.
So, okay, you said that this is not about you, but you're a part. You are an integral part of this. There's no question. There's probably I can't think of another person that has the appropriate background and sort of the bona fides where it would be like, okay, this actually makes sense. I mean, you've put yourself on the line numerous times. You've shown that you're principled in that way. My question, however, is this, and I think that this is I don't know that this is necessarily a question for me, but I feel like I have a responsibility to ask this question for the people who are potentially, you know, having their minds changed about this. And my question is this. We've seen a lot of politicians, all of us in our lives, who've lived long enough. And I mean, we just saw one, right, who basically ran on, well, we had one before that who ran on hope and change, and we didn't get any hope, and there was almost nothing changed. We had one who just ran on, fundamentally, who ran on lock her up and build that wall. And I see nobody being locked up, and I see no wall being built. So, you know.
It's 4D chess. It's 4D chess, Ben. You got to just... He's got the Lord God Emperor King Trump, you know, and
well, what I'm asking you though is, what is it about Adam Kokesh that makes him a different person that we can expect that when he gets in running on this, that this is what's going to happen?
Nothing. I'm not different. I'm drawing the line in the sand, and as for me, I get to be the one to draw that line and to formulate what is that executive order that will carry out this dissolution process, that will liquidate the federal government and fund Social Security as a spun-off institution to pay back the American people until that money runs out. to disown the debt that carries out all those things that I envision based on my principles. If something happens to me, someone else is going to go in and keep running on that platform with that executive order. Maybe they're going to change it. Maybe it's got to change as government changes and progresses in that sense. And I've told people this before, that and this addresses the challenge as well. Well, what about Congress? What about the Supreme Court? What if, well, the thing is, if the American people decide through the American presidential election process that the federal government should not be allowed to continue to exist at all, Congress isn't going to stand in their way, the Supreme Court's not going to stand in their way, and I'm not going to stand in their way. If I get in there and on the first day, they bring me the stack of papers that, here Adam, here's the executive order to dissolve the federal government, and I go, nah, bring me the dictator for life one instead. Shoot me. What really? We're going to go through this whole campaign and decide as a country? The American people are going to decide as a country that the federal government should no longer exist, that we'd be better off as independent states and territories and native nations. And then you're going to let me stand in the way? I don't think so.
I think that's okay. That's fair. That's fair. So what is the?
And I'll say this again. If I go do anything other than sign the executive order, you shoot me. And if anybody else does anything else other than sign the executive and sign the executive order, the American people decide on. If the American people decide with absolute undeniable mandate that the federal government should not be allowed to continue to exist, we as a people will not allow it to continue. And we will have recognized the violent evil that it represents as an institution.
I have no disagreements with that. I'm on board, and I think that needs to be a part of the stump speech. If I go in and don't sign this executive order, shoot me. You heard it here first. You heard it here first. So let's talk about.
I've been saying that for a while. I'm just trying to think. Is it in the stump speech? It has been at times.
It's got to be, dude. It's got to be in there. So you mentioned this, the 2018 Libertarian Convention. Can you talk a little bit more? Because I don't think maybe I just haven't heard this yet. What is the pathway that you see strategically? Because there is still a party to move through. There's support that needs to still be built in order for this to be a reality. It's got to go through a party at this point. What is the strategy moving? Because you're on the ground working at it right now, and we're in 2018, so that's not unreasonable for 2020. What is the strategy moving forward from now till November 2020? What does the framework look like?
Well, we've got the schedule pretty well mapped out, and it's very exciting for me because, as much as I'm a homesteader and would love to be at home, the travel's a lot of fun. And so right now I'm on the road for the next 6 months until the National Convention in New Orleans in 2018, and I'm going to be going to as many state conventions as possible throughout the country and getting our people signed up to be delegates and encouraging our people to come out and support the party and be involved and have their voice heard as a part of it at those events. So the next 6 months is just going back and forth across the country, getting ready for that. And of course, we've got Anarchapulco coming up, and my workshops aren't on the site yet, but if you're going to Anarchapulco, Vin, you mentioned the communication style that I've developed. Well, a lot of it has been influenced by nonviolent communication. So I'm doing a nonviolent communication workshop. Awesome. I'm doing a workshop on homesteading, and I'm doing the first ever freedom activist boot camp. So really looking forward to all of that in Anarchapulco in February, and I've got a few other exciting events that'll be on the calendar at thefreedomline.com. Now, one of the things we've wanted to get out of the way before getting to the part where we are really on the ground continuously here in the U.S., I do, at least the last few years, I've done one national U.S. tour every year. So this is the one for this year, and in the fall we're doing Europe. I'll be in Europe hitting 40 cities. I speak not very well, but I speak 5 different languages other than English, French, Spanish, Arabic, and German. And so I plan to be giving at least passable speeches in those languages on this tour, and then coming back and we're doing the South of the Border tour. And all of this is while we're building the organization here at home, building up the people who came out to the state conventions and to the national convention, and developing the grassroots support that's going to be necessary to secure the nomination in 2020. July 4, 2019, we kick off the full-time campaign with an announcement of the new book, American Freedom, which is laying out the platform, as I did in the first book, Freedom, in about 100 pages. And by the way, my second book is coming out pretty soon here, Hot, Dirty, and Dangerous. It's about my time in Fallujah, a very important anti-war book that I'm really looking forward to getting out here shortly. Still finishing up my edits on that. And then 2019, so that tour, the American Freedom Tour, with that book is going to be on the road, 20 cities, one every weekend, focusing on bigger events and really pushing the message of the book, which is where we shift our messaging from, building the core base of the campaign with people who share the same philosophical grounding and longer-term vision to, coming with this tour in 2019. Now we're presenting it to the American people in a much broader way as, here's a practical plan, here's a comprehensive platform, here's the principles, here's how we do it. Maybe even by then we'll have a draft of the executive order ready to present publicly, and that would be really exciting. So hopefully we'll have that out in 2019, and then I'll get a little break from the road over the holidays, and it's right back on the road. January, actually even in the fall, because some of the states have their conventions, like Massachusetts. Away from the rest a few months ahead. So then it'll just be really focusing on building up the party and securing that nomination for 2020 by going to as many state conventions in the spring. We also have some very exciting plans for military for Kokesh. A lot of military veterans and active duty military getting behind this message, which is just amazing to see, and that from my experience, it's being in combat myself that led me to realize the full depths of the evil of government and what it's capable of. So to see that so many veterans are already on board with this, we're going to be doing some exciting stuff with them at the National Convention in 2018. But spring 2020, there's going to be something a lot bigger that we're working towards. I'll just kind of tease it here, but if you remember the Veterans for Ron Paul March on the White House, yep. What we're thinking at this point is seeing how many military members and veterans we can get marching in formation all the way from the Pentagon to the White House to demand the dissolution of the United States federal government.
Okay,
So,
I want to talk a little bit about this military thing, because this is something where it's I'm having a tough time wrapping my head around both veterans and active duty military being for the dissolution, basically being for them losing their paychecks, their medical benefits. How are you communicating to veterans and other government workers? Because it would seem, for you, obviously, veterans and active duty military is a slam dunk. Should be. It's a perfect fit. But how do you communicate a message of you're potentially risking your sure paycheck and your sure medical benefits by voting for me and supporting me?
Well, you're going to have to let me answer this first in two different ways. Okay. And the first thing, in the practical side of this, when we talk about dissolving the federal government, we're actually only talking about a relatively small part of government employees as a whole. 3 million out of 22 million state employees who exist, at the federal, state, local levels, right? And so when we talk about, these transitions, a lot of people think, well, I'll be able to provide the same services. And similarly, in the military, the plan is not to abolish the United States military. I don't think that's necessary to achieve the goals of localization. So what we're going to do with the military is take the part that's offensive, that has no legitimate defensive purpose. That stuff is liquidated. So all the foreign bases, all the aircraft carriers, nuclear weapons, things like that. The things that are defensive, legitimately, individual troops, tanks, anti-aircraft, missile defense, things like that, those can be apportioned out to the 50 states for their National Guards, which now may become, the Army of California or Texas or New York or Florida or what have you. And so that's one important thing to keep in mind here, is that this is not while this is a radical platform in the good sense of the word of, hey, look, we are getting to the root of the problem. It is the centralization of power. One of the things we're doing is not challenging necessarily people's concept of what government can be. If they want it to be something at the local level, let them have that experiment failure. Let them have that government tailored to their community, as long as they're not forcing it on anybody else, right? And that to me is the first important step that really brings people together. But to get to the heart of the problem, the second way I want to answer that question is that people respond to incentives. And the incentives of the military, of a paycheck, of having smoke blown up your butt, of special privileges, it really are, it's a strong set of incentives. And it's sort of like, well, I'm accepting stolen goods for my paycheck as a member of the military, but the people who pay taxes generally know and accept this. And if they stopped, I would stop doing this. There's a lot of people who, okay, so we're gonna abolish the IRS, right? That's one part of the federal government. Just there's no part of that we want to save or transition in any way. The IRS is just gone, right? And it's going to put a lot of accountants out of work. Right. And most accountants who understand this message aren't going, but if you stop stealing from people en masse, I'm going to lose my job and have to find something more productive to do with myself to contribute to society. No, they go, yeah, this job shouldn't exist. I'm just here because if I don't do it, someone's going to do it. The incentive's here, the money's here. So I think people, we label them statists. They have statist jobs, or they work for the government. I mean, same thing with cops. We can demonize the actions, the setup, the activity, without demonizing the individuals, because most of them are just responding to broader incentives, and a lot of them want to see those incentives changed.
Okay, so abolishing the IRS, military changing around. What about the VA in that regard? Because I know even though it's broken, I got a really good answer
for that question.
What's that?
You're gonna have to give me. I got a really good answer for that question, but you're gonna have to give me just a second.
Okay.
To plug my phone into an auxiliary battery pack.
Oh, that's what the buzzing is. Live and on the road, Adam Kokesh.
Yeah, adventures in No Force One. Well, no, it's fun because I have a generator. And I have to manage my electricity carefully here.
Got it.
And I want to make sure I'm all set up nice and professional.
I love it. You're off the grid though, man, which is perfect. Yeah. Which is absolutely perfect. So
no, it's just part of the adventure, and I love it. So with the VA. The VA is an institution that provides a legitimate service, right? It's providing medical services. It's not hurting anybody. The problem with the VA is that it's controlled by government and it is funded by taxation, which is theft. So how do we separate it from that? And this is where some people may disagree, and I'm willing to take the heat. And if you need to compromise on this one, then I think you really need to swallow this, because I think this is one where I think we can all agree that we don't want to pull the rug out from underneath anyone. And most American taxpayers support the existence of the VA. So I don't want to dissolve the VA. I don't want to get rid of the VA in any way. What I want to do with it is privatize it, so it's no longer funded by taxation. So I think it's important that we say, yeah, we're going to let this institution continue, but the way we do this is we give every single veteran in America one ownership voting share. So privatization in government terms is terrible, but in ethical terms is awesome, because you're putting what were resources controlled by bureaucrats and politicians and their corrupt corporate sponsors now in the hands of way more people who have a legitimate interest. So let's take the VA, give it to the veterans, and in the process of dissolving the federal government, of liquidating it, I think we should give it enough of an endowment that it's at least able to be solvent for several decades for whatever is appropriate. I would like to see, and I think it would be reasonable given how much we are going to be able to save by dissolving the federal government, how much money is going to be available upon liquidation of federal government resources, that the VA be given an endowment that should last until to the end, to be able to provide all the service needed for all current veterans, who, of course, we are going to stop making by not having any more wars that are not defensive and not conducted at the state level. So give the VA back to the veterans. veterans, give it an endowment, and give every single veteran one single ownership voting share. And you know what? This is something that's really, for me, an issue that's near and dear to my heart, because taking care of veterans historically has always been a very important social function, with or without a government. Even in, you know, pre-modern institutional governments, taking care of warriors coming home who, whether you believe the myth or not, whether it's legitimate or not, depending on circumstance, have risked their lives to defend the greater population. Taking care of them is something that people put a lot of value in. And what the government has done in modern times, in the age of the global war on terror with the VA, is shameful. Mm-hmm. It is disgusting. And to see not just what happened at Walter Reed, to see the veteran suicide rate right now. Mm-hmm. And 22 veterans commit suicide every single day in America. And it's not just because of the trauma of war. When I went to the VA and I told them that I was having trouble sleeping when I got back from Iraq, I walked out of there with a little brown paper bag, 5 prescriptions. 3 of them had suicide listed as a side effect. They are killing veterans on behalf of the pharmaceutical industry, because veterans are not allowed to demand the health care that is appropriate for especially things like PTSD. And we know MDMA, and I got to say thanks, shout out to MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, who hosted me at an event in San Francisco last year, raising money to get MDMA approved for PTSD therapy, because it is effectively a cure for PTSD that the government has kept illegal on behalf of pharmaceutical companies. Mushrooms, of course, have also huge therapeutic benefits that have not been properly explored, because the government has kept them illegal and kept it illegal to research them even. And it's really sick and sad. And veterans are the ones who, I think, especially in those regards, suffer the most. But ultimately, it's the American people as a whole. When you create all these, you know, and man, I'm sorry, I could go off forever on the pharmaceutical industry's corruptions of American health through the government, and, you know, the opioid epidemic, and how people are less healthy as a result, and how cures are kept away from people. You know, it's really sick. But for veterans in the VA, you know, that's one thing I am really especially passionate about from my own personal experience, and I do believe that it represents some of the greatest hypocrisy and tragedy of the United States.
So I think that's a great segue, this idea of at least talking about privatizing medicine, which is clearly in this country moving away from a private system to a publicly funded system. And I think it's a good segue to, I mean, Ron Paul inspired so many people, and I think that you're carrying on, you're sort of, it seems, the next step in this sort of legacy that maybe really took hold in 2008. My question to you, though, is, you know, Ron Paul had such a huge youth backing in 2008. A lot of young people supporting the message of liberty. But as I look at 2018 and I look at the landscape of the people who are the same age now, I don't see the same, and the polls show that it's not the same mentality, that there's, you know, some vast majority of millennials and certainly people in their teens and 20s who are supporters of socialism and would be happy to live in a socialist state, and you're really directly going against that. But clearly you're going to need a youth movement. How do, especially if this movement goes on and it's not 2020, it's 2028 or it's 2032, how do we start reaching out to the youth? What is the message for young people who seem to increasingly be going towards wanting a big daddy government to take care of them?
Well, first of all, I'll bet a lot of those statistics came from somebody associated with government.
Could be.
But it's clear the overwhelming trend is that the younger you are, the more likely you are to be libertarian. And we found that in generally my base of support, yes, we have a much younger group than either the Democrats or Republicans by a very wide margin. And it's I think when it comes to the youth, certainly that you might see superficially going more left on the traditional left-right Republican Democrat, you know, false spectrum of politics, as opposed to the, you know, statist libertarian spectrum. You know, I think there's some credibility to that. I think, you know, Obama is a lot cooler than Trump. You know, certainly cooler than Bush or McCain or Romney. And there is that trendiness, and of course you saw that with Bernie Sanders. But I look at the silver lining there with both Trump and Sanders, because Sanders won the Democratic primary, that they represent shifts in people looking to something fundamentally different and anti-establishment. And from my experience, young people are much more able to look at the future without being subjected to short-term fears. And I think that's one of the things that's kept us from getting out of this fear-based duopoly in politics of the old parties. And, we know that it's older Americans who vote much more consistently. And so as a voting bloc, they're the ones that the old parties pander to, and it, kind of feeds on itself. But when you don't have as long to live, you just want to be kept safe from terrorists, and you want to keep your Social Security check coming. That's the demographic reality, and I think now, especially with just how much the internet has changed the conversation, not only are old people kind of falling away from that and getting past that, but it's especially young people. So while you might look at that through the left-right spectrum and go, oh, the youth are going left, I really think that fundamentally, one, they're more libertarian. I think those statistics are clear. Even if you want to say they're left-right, they're more left, or less right and more to the left. Overall, clearly more libertarian. And even more fundamentally than that, much more open-minded. But there's something about our message that maybe, I don't know, did you get this from my post about the voting age day before yesterday?
No, I didn't see it. This is just something I've been thinking about in regards to your campaign.
Okay, cool, because I kicked up a little dust with this post about the voting age, because
I did see that. I did see that. Yes. That you can drive at 16 and you can, yes.
You can enlist in the U.S. military at 17.
Okay.
You can drive and pay taxes on your income at 16.
Right.
You can be tried as an adult and sentenced to life in prison at age 11. But you cannot vote. Despite having been forced into a government school for 4 years at that point for most American children, you cannot vote until you are 18. And I remember when I was a kid really resenting age discrimination. And I think this is important to our message, and this is one of the things that attracted me to the philosophy of liberty, that we don't judge individuals by race. We don't judge individuals by nation of origin. We don't judge individuals by circumstance of birth. We judge people by their abilities as individuals and what they have to offer to the world. And that encourages people to be much more generous and offering and much less judgmental. And I remember really resenting that, I'm not 18, so I can't do, but the day before, I'm not allowed to do this, but the day, my rights are magically ascribed to me upon an arbitrary date that somebody else voted on. I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. And I remember when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I really resented all of that kind of age discrimination in society. And I'm not saying that people should be dragging their toddlers to the voting booth and filling out ballots for them. No, but if you're gonna say that you can vote because you're an adult in America, no, you got to say, sorry, if you're old enough to come out in a certain opinion, then you're old enough. You should be able to have that opinion respected. And what I said was, if you're competent enough to fill out a voter registration form on your own, and by the way, this would be a stricter standard than is applied for a lot of places where the old parties fill out voting registration forms for dead people in triplicate, and but have the simple standard that says we're going to end age discrimination. We ended race discrimination, gender discrimination, at least in so many ways. Lots of caveats there to both of those still, of course. But we still have this big entrenched concept of age discrimination. And of course, I'm not for voting for government, but I really do believe that even applying these principles, you end up with a very practical outcome, because getting more youth involved in politics means you're going to have people who are more forward-looking in politics, people looking more for the long term, and you're going to have people who haven't been subjected to propaganda their entire lives. You're going to have people who are much more open-minded, and you're going to have a way of including everybody in the conversation, everybody in participation, based on their ability, their desire, and their willingness to be a part of it, rather than some silly arbitrary barrier that is just set up to deny people their rights.
I dig it. I think it also creates an incentive to actually start educating kids about what's going on in the world, because they're going to be able to actually potentially vote on what's going to happen to you. So that's no, I think it's a very, very interesting point. So for people who want to check you out, so you're on the road. Is this a proper tour that's happening right now? What's the next stop? Where can people check you out? Where can they hear you speak?
Well, we're not really promoting this specifically like as a tour, but if we had to call it a tour, it would be the Community and Unity Tour of the Libertarian Party State Conventions of 2018. And you can see my calendar at thefreedomline.com. Click on calendar. There's a button on the menu bar. You can see at least we're pretty good about putting events up. Pretty much everything should be on there. One thing that's not, because I think I'm just going as an attendee still, is the Bitcoin conference in Miami this weekend. Very much looking forward to that. And I don't think Anarchapulco is on there, but you can get to that at anarchapulco.com. And so I'm just going to as many state conventions as possible, getting as many of our people in as delegates as possible, and getting ready for the national convention in 2018 at this point. So right now I'm driving to Miami for the Bitcoin conference, and then I have to fly back to Arizona for the state convention there, and then to Atlanta, and then back to Miami to get the wrap done on No Force One, which I'm very much looking forward to. And then I'll see you in Anarchapulco, right?
Yep. Yes, indeed you will, which is shaping up to be great, and I'm looking forward to it. So with that, thank you for coming on, Adam. I'll see you, I guess, in a few weeks, and of course we will have you back on to keep up to date with what's going on with you. So Adam Kokesh, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we'll see you again.
My pleasure, brother.
All right, brother. Christian, as always, fun to talk with Adam. I do think that it is, now I'm not going to run and I'm not going to vote, but I know that there are people who are voting, and I figure that if you are going to vote, and if we are going to have a Libertarian Party, there needs to be people who are like, okay, here's the principle. The principle is no other individual has the right to violently restrict my ability to peacefully interact with other human beings or with nature or myself. And if somebody's willing to live by that, and they're like, okay, I'm going to take that on myself, I'm going to go have political office, and my actions are going to reflect that. So that means when it comes to marijuana, no one has the right to violently restrict another person's ability to peacefully grow, possess, or consume a plant. So just remove the word marijuana and all of the penalties associated with it, including the definition of marijuana and all of the rest of the drugs and everything there. Just remove it from the criminal code. Like, that's the law, right? Same goes for it. No one has the right to violently restrict someone's ability to have a peaceful voluntary exchange with another individual, right? I want all the business laws gone, all the business licensing. Take prostitution off the books. Take all that shit.
Gone.
All of it gone. That's, and I feel like that's a project. That's an actual movement, because you can do it one at a time, gradually, and it's like, let's just do it and then let's see. Let's just do it and then let's see. New Hampshire has no seatbelt law. No seatbelt law. And there's plenty of states that have no helmet law. And when you look at the numbers, it doesn't affect traffic fatalities at all. At all. Look, most people in New Hampshire still wear their seatbelt, but there's no seatbelt law.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? A lot of people in states with no helmet law, like I think Florida may not have a helmet law. I'm thinking, because I always see people in Miami driving down the street with no helmet on. But tons of people do wear helmets in Florida. It's your choice. Grow up.
Exactly.
Be an adult. Govern yourself. Which, by the way, although, do you still have BitPay active? Can people pay with Bitcoin if they really want to pay, or you just took it off?
I have it on there.
Okay, so govern yourself. Now people can pay. For the people who have been wanting a shirt but don't have cryptocurrency, Bitcoin's loss is your gain, because now We've enabled PayPal until we're able to switch it over to altcoins. Governyourself.com. Why don't you show them the shirts? I moved it over to the Feel the BS.
Nice.
Throw that Govern Yourself back up. You can get this shirt among many, many others at governyourself.com. GVRNURSLF for those people listening. And yes, you can pay with dirty fiat or PayPal. We will allow you to do that, which you can also do for the coding classes. I think it's reasonable.
Yeah.
Especially for the shirts, for the hard gift, you know what I mean? But when it comes to the vodka, when it comes to the book, those are going to stay pure crypto. So, well, I think we're coming up on the end of the show, dude.
Great show.
It was a good one. Interesting synchronicity, Adam talking about the value of psychedelics as well.
Right.
Our consciousness is expanding, man. Like, this is a time for the expansion of consciousness, and all that we need to make this happen, because it wants to happen on its own, the role that we can play is to carve out free spaces in the world, whether that's physically, whether that's mentally, whether that's intellectually, to start carving these spaces out and to really be protective of allowing freedom to take place and liberty to be in full action inside those places, man. So whether that's in New Hampshire, whether that's wherever you're living yourself, that's the move, man. That's the move. Always supporting the free expression of ideas, supporting other people's right to peacefully interact in the world without violent coercion. It's important, man.
Love it.
It's important. All right. Well, let me say goodbye to the people. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, Christian, of course, as always. I want to thank our guest today, Rachel Goldsmith, the Executive Director of the Free State Project, and, of course, Adam Kokesh. Best luck to him and good travels on his way to Miami. So you can check us out on podcasts, on iTunes and Stitcher. As well, you can just go to vinarmani.com and see all of our archived past broadcasts. And what else? Is there something else? No, I think that's it. We'll be back next week, 10 a.m. Pacific time on Monday. And until then, stay free.